Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 627, written by MultiFrapser, When the Dark Sky Holds a Concert. This was captured during a cold night on the 24th of January, 2020, at around 10:30 p.m. I was doing my mandatory military service in the Finnish Defense Forces as military police, and during the time I captured this clip, I kept watch at one of the checkpoints that leads to the military base or garrison, whatever you call it. The clip is captured with the phone I had back then, a Huawei P20 Pro, and I recorded it to Snapchat in order to send it to my buddies so they could go out and listen to the sound too. The sounds continued for approximately 45 minutes to approximately 11:15 p.m. When the sounds started to vanish, it felt like it was getting quieter with each noise it made. It wasn't sudden, unlike when it started. I don't really know when it did start, because I was inside our security booth, but when I heard it, I rushed outside to check it out and listen. My pal was with me and noticed it too. After the noises ended, I didn't hear them again. I remember someone telling me they heard the same noises exactly the day before, around midnight. I wasn't there then to witness it, unfortunately. About the area of the incident, the base itself was quiet back then because the time was close to midnight and there wouldn't be any action at that time, and if there were, then we'd most certainly know about it, no doubt. There is, however, a town or city you could almost say, close by, approximately 1.5 kilometers away. The city is technically a ghost town around this time, and even during rush hour, it's really nothing special. Very quiet and kinda eerie place, I'd call it. There is a central fire station nearby, but that's unlikely the source of the sound. Also, some rural industries are located nearby, but again, those are most likely not very active around that time, midnight. If I had to guess where the source of this is coming from, it'd be the big water tower located just across the road from the base. It's mostly made up of concrete. It hasn't been making any noise before though, and during the time I filmed this, it wasn't that windy at all. But maybe someone knows more about water towers than I do? Also worth mentioning is that a one-track railroad is located quite close. But as far as I know, no cargo is transported on this, only during specific times. A rural rail bus line will be driving here, and it certainly wouldn't make this noise. A small bay is located on the other side of the base, but only small motor and sailboats are able to operate in these waters, and during this time of the year, I don't think anyone would be riding there in pitch black darkness. No attempt could be made to debunk it simply because I couldn't leave my post and it was extremely hard to locate the sound. It did sound like it was coming from the woods, but that's a risky bet to make. A lot was spoken about the incident the next day, but it was a mystery that never, as far as I know, returned. I'm not serving in the military anymore because I was moved to the reserves, but it'd be fun to know if those people serving there now have been hearing stuff like this. Who knows? Case notes, file number 627. I listened to this clip. Creepy is the first word that comes to mind. Then, unsettling. The best way I'd personally describe it is as a sort of muffled, distorted train horn. But train horns are far louder and persist for longer. Actually, it sounds a little similar, but also more quiet than the sky trumpets that you hear about. There's no real explanation for those either. The only mundane explanation I could go with would be some type of glitched out train passing by. Although, as you say, freight trains didn't travel on that rail line, unless there was some type of rare exception. Which, if that is the case, it could explain why it was never heard again. But it wouldn't explain why the sound is so diffused if the rail is close by. There's a rail line 2 kilometers away from me, and whenever freight passes through, it's so loud I can feel my house walls vibrate slightly. All these sound glitches fascinate me. The hum, or sky trumpets, or this, because everyone hears it, or most people are able to hear it. Sometimes some people aren't, and it's usually not a high-pitched sound, so it's not related to old age. I think for the hum, they've even been able to measure it instrumentally, but some people still can't hear it. And they've never been able to determine where it's coming from. Bonus file, written by D615, The Vintage Dress. Long story short, My mom passed away recently in my home country. My notoriously hard-to-shop-for sister, also in my home country, went to a modern department store to buy mourning wear. A fellow customer, just like a younger version of my mom, overheard her talking to the saleswoman and immediately stepped in and found her a blouse in her size, the kind my mom used to buy for her 35 years ago on overseas trips. Few key points. The department store is recently built and very contemporary. They do not have any vintage stock, the way Neiman M or Nordstrom don't have forgotten items from the 80s and 90s hiding out in the racks. This is a vibrant, exclusive store with quick turnarounds and lots of employees. The cream and white tops looked pristine. The department store is a standalone, not a part of a chain or revamped old business. In my home country, vintage is stigmatized. An upscale department store wouldn't want to besmirch their reputation by selling vintage items, even allowing for the very minuscule probability that this was some decades-old leftover stock from a supplier. They fit my sister perfectly. The fellow customer had just reached out into the racks and pulled them out, only knowing the color, but no other specifications. After the funeral, I went to the store and met a floor manager, in the hopes of buying more items like this for my sister. This was a week after my sister was there. He called up at least 5 sales personnel from the floor. No one could remember having these items. The department store has multiples of pretty much everything in different colors and sizes. Because these are the types of blouses she likes, my sister is always actively on the hunt for them. She's been unsuccessful for 30 plus years. If it's some kind of resurgence trend, there will be plenty of other similar items. When I visited the store with my sister, she insisted we could leave out the back entrance. I argued with her that the security won't let customers exit through the back. I was right, it's narrow and very heavily guarded. My sister was quite certain it was possible because a lady who selected the tops for her had disappeared out through the back. When handing the items to my sister, the lady had said something verbatim my mom always told my sister when getting dressed for a special event. It's like a young version of my mom, shows her dress. Bonus file, written by lemonaderobot, a proper game of Nerf dart. Last October, my friend Tanner died unexpectedly due to causes that can't be mentioned in the sub's rules. I don't need to go into too many details because they're not relevant to the story, but it was easily one of the hardest hitting losses I've ever had. He and I shared a very close and special bond and overcame a lot in life together. He had moved in with our mutual friend, Beth, and her boyfriend, several months prior to passing away, so I would constantly come over to hang out with everyone as I lived nearby. One summer day, we all had a giant Nerf gun fight together in their front yard. I distinctly remember making eye contact with Tanner and having a strange gut feeling at the time that this was a bittersweet moment, but brushed it off as being sad that summer was coming to a close. I felt uneasy though, that he had the same sad, longing look in his eyes that I did. It began to get dark out. After collecting as many darts as we could, we headed inside as Tanner declared, "This isn't over yet." A month later, after noticing many strange behaviors, Beth and her boyfriend made the heavy decision to call Tanner's mom and have her convince him to go back to rehab. 3 months later, Tanner was dead. I moved out of state since, but always go back to visit Beth when I'm home. One day after heavy snowfall, I pulled into Beth's driveway. Just as I hopped out of my car, Beth came to the door to greet me. Something yellow popped out against the fresh snowfall, immediately catching both of our attention. We looked down and directly on our front step, perfectly placed in the untouched snow, was a Nerf dart. Well played, buddy. Well played.